Hello my dear friends, I am Cory. In this video I'm going to show you 4 more war games for those of you who want to get into wargaming in order to wargame. Well, that was a silly intro. How are you doing, my friends? Welcome to this new video, which is a part 2 of a series of videos that I don't know how many of them there will be. I guess maybe 4. But anyway, I have already done a video like this. I will leave the link down in the description if you want to check it out. And in this series, I'm going to show you all those war games that I think are perfect for those of you who want to get into our hobby, but don't have a lot of money to buy an entire army, and of course don't have the time to build and paint those army and also learn a rulebook or all the supplements around a rulebook. So I'm going to show you all those war games that require just one single rulebook and also that are miniature agnostic. What does it mean? A miniature agnostic games mean that it doesn't require any kind of specific branded miniatures. You can buy whatever kind of miniatures that you want from whatever manufacturer you want, as long as you are happy with them. In this video I'm going to show you 4 new war games, but also I'm going to touch a little bit into the historical wargaming niche, because I know that there is a niche out there for historical wargaming, which I also love, and specifically the Napoleonic War era of wargaming. Just a little disclaimer, all the companies that have published these rulebooks didn't sponsor me, but I don't care. I will leave the links for these rulebooks down in the description, and I really suggest you go buy them, because I think these rule sets are incredible for those of you who want to get started, but also for those of you who have already started and want to try something different. So without further ado, let's start with the first rulebook. Have you ever played or read a series of book or played a series of video games called Metro, specifically Metro 2033, Metro 2034? Well, this rulebook that I'm going to show you right now, it is exactly that genre. It's also put a little bit of Fallout, Stalker, and it is a post-apocalyptic Eastern Europe exclusion radioactive zone kind of game, which is Zona Alpha. Zona Alpha. I'm just going to say it in my language. It's Zona Alpha. Written by Patrick Todorov and published by Offspray Game. Now, this is a skirmish war game that it is a little bit sci-fi-ish, but not too much. It is a modern kind of type of skirmish war game. It's not revolutionary in its mechanic. You are going to use d10s instead of d6s, but you're also going to use sometimes d6s, but for the majority of the part you're just going to throw d10s. But what I think is great about this war game is the mechanic that revolves around building your warband, which I think is something that a lot of wargaming creators should really take into consideration when creating a new war game, specifically a skirmish war game. I don't know you, but this happens to me almost all the time. I have to build a warband and an army, and I actually spend more time building my army and my warband than instead playing the actual game. And with this rulebook, quite the opposite happens. The system in which you build your warband is based on the number of action that your miniatures can do. So the soldiers of your warband are divided into 3 categories. 3 classes. That's more easy to say, actually. And those 3 classes are Rookie, Hardened, and Veterans. Rookies can perform 1 action, Hardener can perform 2 action, and Veteran can perform 3 action. And when you build a warband, you have to take into consideration the number of action that your miniatures are going to perform. A warband is built upon 12 action point, and every warband does have a leader, which is always a veteran, and veterans take 3 action points. So for the rest of the 9 points you will have to build your warband. So this will give you a lot of ways to create the warband of your dreams. Do you want to go with a lot of rookies, so just 1 leader and 9 rookies that are, well, not very skilled, they can perform only 1 action at a time, but then you will have a lot of firepower firepower, or you can build a 4 veterans warband, and you will only have 4 of them, but then those 4 miniatures can perform 3 actions at a time. Or you can go with a mixed bag of the two. Maybe you put some hardruns in there, maybe 1 veteran and some rookies. This will give you a lot of way to build a warband, and also the equipment and the war gear doesn't actually have a point cost. Basically what the game tells you is play the miniatures WYSIWYG, which means what you see is what you get. This method of building a warband, in my opinion, is a great method. It is really quickly, easy to understand, it doesn't take a lot of time, and this, in my opinion, is what makes this game great. It is quick and easy to understand, especially when building your warband. Then, for the gaming part, well, it is like any other kind of skirmish wargame. You throw dice and see if your miniatures can perform or not, and action with the result of the dice. Being a post-apocalyptic kind of game with radiation, there are going to be, of course, monsters, so think of it like the game Fallout. Most of the time there are going to be mutants, zombies, post-apocalyptic radioactive monster with mutation and stuff like that. And the cool part is that you don't actually require a third player in order to move the monsters around. The monsters are controlled by the game AI, artificial intelligence, I think we can call it that way. So you don't require actually a third player to move the monsters around, and the mechanics of the monsters are very easy. They just move toward the nearest miniatures and then try to kill it in whatever way they can. That's it. So, Zona Alpha. I bought this game from Amazon, but you can buy it from Osprey Game. I will leave the link of the website down in the description if you want to check it out. I really suggest you go and play with it because it is very fun, very easy to understand. Every game of Zona Alpha is going to take you 45 to an hour of gameplay, so it is also very quick, as I already said multiple times. So go check it out. I think you will be very happy with this game. Now for the next game we are going into historical Napoleonic wargaming, because there is also a skirmish wargame for those of you who want to get into the Napoleonic War theme. If you want to play a Napoleonic war game, you will most of the time go and play a game called Black Powder, which is a great and amazing game published by Wargames. The only problem with Black Powder is that you will have to field on the table like a lot of miniatures, because they are trying to recreate those battles of the Napoleonic Wars period of time. So you will have to paint like dozens and dozens of infantrymen, cavalrymen, artillery pieces. But what if you just get started and want to try a Napoleonic War game? Well, I have something for you. The game is called Songs of Drums and Shackles, published by Ganesha Game, written by Sergio Laliscia, which is another countryman of mine. If you saw the previous video in which I've shown you my first 4 war games, I have spoke about a game called Song of Blades and Heroes, which is a fantasy skirmish war game, and I think is one of the best game out there because it's incredibly easy to learn and it doesn't require a lot of materials. You just only need 3 measuring sticks and some 6-sided dice, and that's it. Songs of Drums and Shackles does have the same rule set of Songs of Blades and Heroes. You will require the same kind of materials, you will have to build a small warband, and that's it. The rules are basically the same. The only thing that changed is the theme, because during the Napoleonic War there weren't such things like magic or trolls or fantasy stuff. But instead, it's going to be a proper recreation of those battles during the Napoleonic Wars. So instead you are going to have muskets, you are going to take into consideration the mechanic of reloading your rifle after you shoot them. There are also rules for cavalry. Basically the same easy to learn and understand rule set, but during the Napoleonic War period. The rulebook is very thin, there are only 50 pages, and the rule part of the book are like 20-25 pages. The rest of it is the scenarios and how to build your warband with all the points and stats of every kind of miniatures, and there are also some specific features and skills for those specific nations. For example, if you're going to play Austrian, they have an advantage on cavalry. They have very light cavalry, so they have an advantage of movement. I love this game. I think that this game is going to be perfect for those of you who wants to get into the Napoleonic War setting, because, well, most of the time you want to build a giant army, but you don't have the time and money, as I already said, but you really want to play with the miniatures that you have already painted. Well, this is going to be perfect for those of you. So go check it out. You can find the book on the Ganesha Game website, but I know that there are a lot of websites out there that can sell you the PDF, so if you don't want the physical book with you, you can buy the PDF and go to town with that and play the game with only the PDF. Let's stay into the Napoleonic War theme for a little bit for the next game, but we are just going to add a little bit of fantasy and horror. The Silver Bayonet, a wargame of Napoleonic Gothic horror, published by Offspray Game, written by somebody that I'm going to butcher the name, which is Joseph A. Megulog. I'm sorry, I've tried, I hope I said it well, but anyway, this is the game. When I found out the existence of this game, I didn't know anything. I didn't see any review, I didn't look up the rules, I didn't look anything. By the theme of this book, I decided that I'm going to buy it, either the game be good or bad, but don't worry, the game is actually very good. Let me introduce you to the theme of the game. So, brief history lesson. During the Napoleonic Wars, a lot of people died. Shocking, I know. And since a lot of people were dying during that period of time, there were a lot of despair, suffering and pain. And some entities, called the Harvestmen, were very happy. Think of the Harvestmen as the chaos god of Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, Fantasy and Warhammer 40k. They feast upon those negative emotions like fear, pain, death, suffering, and in order to obtain more of that, they decided that they will unleash horrors upon our world during the Napoleonic Wars. So you are going to have your Napoleonic warband fighting against monsters such as werewolf, vampires, zombies, demons, all of these beautiful things that came from horror and also fantasy. The mechanic of the game is also very interesting. You are going to roll d10s, not d6s, and there are 3 different types of dice, which are skill dice, power dice, and monster dice. When you want to perform an action such as shooting or fighting with one of your miniatures, you will have to roll 2 dice, which is a power dice and a skill dice. Then you will add the 2 results together, and to that number you will add the skill of your model. With that number, you are going to see if you manage to hit the target number. If you hit that number or you have gone above that number, then you succeeded. If you go below, it's a fail. But I've also told you that there is a 3rd type of dice, which is a monster dice. Well, cool things start happens when you roll your dices in the initiative rolls. If you manage to roll a double 10 or a double 1 with your dice, strange things start to happen. Basically, when you roll double 10s, you will then roll another dice to see in a chart what is going to happen, and this can be random event, like something very mundane, like it starts raining, and so all of your weapons are going to be penalized by shooting with them. Or maybe a cannonball just happened to land into the battlefield and somebody is going to be injured by that. Or more crazy stuff could happen. My favorite one is when one of your miniatures and one of your opponent's miniatures switch positions. And it's really interesting because it's going to make the game more crazy and unpredictable. But what happens if you roll a double one? Well, monsters start to pop out. And monsters, well, there are all crazy type of monster. Goblin, hobgoblins, trolls, demons, vampires, werewolves. All of this beautiful stuff that comes from fantasy, horror, gothic, and the monsters are again controlled by the AI, like Zona Alpha. There is also a strategic component, because for every nation there are specific type of soldier that that nation can recruit. So for example, Britain can recruit a type of soldier which are Highlanders, or Austria can recruit vampires, which are a offspring between a human being and a vampire. Since the monsters are controlled by a AI, you don't require a third player, but you can also play solo. There is a chapter that will help you creating a game when you are the only one playing and the monsters are controlled by the game itself, because sometimes you don't have friends that play wargaming, or you don't have friends at all, and you are alone at your home with your little toy soldiers, painted, and then you put them into a shelf, and then you are wondering why you're doing this, and you need to understand the meaning of life. So this is a very cool game, and I suggest you go and buy it. Again, I bought this game from Amazon, but you can find it on Offspray Game, but I suggest you go and check it out on North Star Game. This is a very new game, it came out recently, and so there are no expansion, but I think there are going to be expansion in the future for this game, so I suggest you keep an eye on it and go to the North Star website. I will leave the link down in the description, because they also have a line of miniatures specifically created for the Silver Bayonet, which are amazing, and I have already ordered them and I can't wait to paint those miniatures, so go and check it out. And now the last rulebook, which is a fantasy skirmish wargame, and I have already talked about it in a video dedicated only to this game, but I decided to put it here anyway because I think it is really interesting. This is Barrows and Badges, a skirmish game of anthropomorphic animals, published by Osprey Game and written by Michael Lovejoy, which is actually a very lovely guy by the name. Every time I publish a miniature for Barrows and Badges, you always leave a comment on my post, and I really love you, Michael. Thank you very much. So, Barrows and Badges is a skirmish war game, a fantasy skirmish war game, which is very interesting for two specific factors. The first one is that you are going to use anthropomorphic animals, which gives a very great flavor, a very strange flavor sometimes to the game. And every animal does have their specific trait and skill based on the races and species of those animals. So maybe if you want a rabbit in your warband, he does have the ability to leap, so he's going to ignore movement when he have to go like on top of something, so he's going to ignore vertical movement. Or if you're going to have maybe a sparrow, he is able to fly, so he's going to ignore terrains in any circumstances. Ferrets are fearless, wildcats are fearsome. There are a lot of abilities that apply to a lot of different type of animals. Animals are also divided into 4 weight class, which are tiny, small, medium, and massive, if I remember correctly. And the differences between these 4 weight classes is that the more tiny the animal is, the more squishy and agile and fast he's going to be. On the opposite side, a massive beast like a badger, a hound, he's going to be very bulkier, very strong, very resistant to damage, but very slow and not so agile. But a massive beast doesn't always have to be a warrior, because you might think that since hounds and badgers are very big and bulkier, they have to be warriors, and maybe tiny animals like mouse and shrews and bat need to be like magic wielder, or maybe they will use some ranged weapon. No, you can do whatever you want. You can have a hound being very strong and big, but also be a magician, and you can have a mouse, a shrew, or a bat, a little rat, being a strong warrior, a fighter. And don't get me wrong, this is going to be incredibly balanced because of the critical role rules. The critical role rule basically works like this. Every time you throw a dice and you manage to obtain the maximum number for that dice, that is a critical, and to that result you are going to add 7 to the final result. This means that even a tiny mouse can strike down a massive badger with just a single shot. And believe me, this has happened multiple times. It's one of the greatest things about this game, in my opinion. Barrows and Badger. You can buy this game from Amazon, Osprey Game, but I suggest you go and buy it from Old Swarm Miniatures. I will leave the link down in the description, and there is a reason for that, which is that you are not only going to find this rulebook, there are some expansion also for it, but most importantly, you are going to find miniatures sculpted by Michael Lovejoy that are made in order to be used in your Barrows and Badger games, and I love those miniatures. Those miniatures are amazing. I can't get enough of them. I am actually trying to collect them all, but thanks to Brexit this is going to be very hard, but don't worry, I am never going to surrender. I will buy them all. Unless Michael sends me some free miniatures. So go and buy Barrows and Badgers and all the miniatures for this game, which I know they are a little bit specific because you need to use anthropomorphic animals, but you can use, for example, Skavens or Lizardmen from Games Workshop. I also know that WizKid does some miniatures for Dungeons and Dragons, and so I think that you can use Tabaxi miniatures, Kenku miniatures, Dragonfolk miniatures in order to be played on Barrows and Badger. You can also do that, or you can 3D print miniatures. There are a lot of STL out there that allow you to print some very nice and cool anthropomorphic animals. So nothing's going to stop you. Go and buy and play this game. It is a lot of fun. So my friends, thank you very much. I hope you like this video, and if you did, leave a like, subscribe, and also let me know down in the comment what you think about the games that I've shown you here. If you already know them, if you are going to play them, if you have already played them, let me know everything that you want down there. Also down in the description you will find the link for these books. I already told you that, but you will also find a link for my Instagram, so if you want to follow me there, I will be very happy. And if you want to donate, which you don't have, really keep the money for yourself. These are very hard times, but if you really want to burn $1, there is a link for my coffee. So if you want, just buy me a coffee. If you really want that, you don't have to, but if you want, the link is down there. So my friend, thank you very much. This is the end of the video. I am Cory, and I hope to see you the next time. Ciao, ciao.